The sun beat down hard on the dusty roadside in a bustling corner of Nairobi. Car horns blared, street vendors shouted, and children weaved in and out of traffic, trying to sell bottled water or plastic bags. Among them was a girl named Amina, barefoot, with matted hair and a face that had forgotten what a mirror looked like. She had lived on the streets since the age of 11, after her mother died and her father vanished. Now 19, she had learned to survive the harsh reality of street life, begging, helping carry loads, or sometimes just sitting and hoping someone might give her food. That afternoon, as she waited under a small tree for the heat to ease, a sleek black Land Cruiser sped by, but suddenly came to a loud halt a few meters ahead. Smoke began to rise from under the hood. The driver, a young man in a sharp blue suit, stepped out, clearly frustrated. He pulled out his phone, but the network was terrible. He opened the hood, coughed as the smoke hit his face, and stared at the engine like it was written in another language. Amina watched from a distance, curious. No one offered help, many were too busy. Others assumed he'd figure it out with his wealth. But something in Amina stirred. She'd seen this kind of breakdown before, helped an old mechanic in the back streets fix dozens of engines for a plate of food. So, without thinking much, she walked toward him. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, almost afraid he'd shout at her. He looked up, surprised to see a girl in torn clothes, eyes kind but tired. "I think I know what's wrong with your car," she continued. "May I try?" The man hesitated. You know engines." She smiled, nodded. "I've helped fix many. You can watch me. I won't steal anything." Something in her confidence disarmed him. He stepped back. Amina rolled up her sleeves, her skinny arms moving swiftly. She tightened a belt, adjusted a loose wire, and within 10 minutes asked him to try the ignition. He did, and to his surprise, the engine roared back to life. He stood still for a moment, stunned. "How backslash? How did you do that?" he asked. "I've learned." She shrugged. "If I didn't know how to fix things, I wouldn't survive." "What's your name?" "Amina." "I'm David." David Kamani was no ordinary man. At just 28, he was the CEO of a rising tech company. He had studied abroad, returned to Kenya to build apps for farmers and small businesses, and had just been named on Forbes Africa's 30 Under 30. He lived in a mansion in Karen, flew to Dubai for meetings, and yet, in all his success, something always felt hollow. He reached into his wallet to give her money. "No thank you," she said. "I didn't help for money, just glad to be useful." That answer hit him harder than a slap. No one in his world refused money. "Are you always here?" he asked, mostly. "I sleep near the old market stalls." He gave her a long look, got into his car, and drove off. But he couldn't forget her. That night, he sat in his luxury apartment, trying to enjoy his imported wine and satellite TV, but Amina's image haunted him. Her eyes had depth, like someone who had suffered yet still had light. The next day, he returned. Amina was sitting on a step, eating a banana. When she saw him, she stood up, startled. I didn't expect you to come back. I owe you a favor. Come with me," he said. "Where? You'll see." She hesitated, but curiosity won. He took her to a restaurant, not too fancy, but clean and welcoming. She ordered only chapati and beans, though the menu had burgers and chicken. He watched her eat, then asked her to tell him her story. She spoke slowly about the orphanage that closed down, the hunger, the abuse from older street boys, the days she thought of ending her life, and the one day a kind old mechanic gave her a job cleaning tools from him. She learned engines, timing belts, and how not all men were cruel. David listened without interrupting. "Would you like to work?" he asked. "I do, every day. I mean something steady, something safe. I'd love to, but who would hire me like this? I would." She laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Over the next few weeks, David arranged for Amina to be taken to a women's shelter, given clean clothes, and enrolled in a basic mechanics course. He paid for everything quietly without telling the press or showing it off online. Amina worked hard, faster than anyone else in her class. She had a sharp brain, hands that learned fast, and a discipline born of struggle. Soon, she began interning at one of David's company garages, then got promoted to assistant technician. Months passed. David visited often, always casually. They shared tea, jokes, stories. One day, as they sat by a lake during a team retreat, she said, "Why me? There are many others out there." "Because you helped me when you had nothing. Because you reminded me what humanity is. You saw a man in trouble, not a wallet." She looked away, shy. Her cheeks flushed. David reached into his bag, pulled out a book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Inside, a note: "The world gives to those who listen to their hearts. You listened. Now let your heart lead again with me." She looked at him, speechless. "I've fallen in love with you, Amina," he said, "not out of pity, but out of admiration. You're the strongest woman I've ever met." Tears filled her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with desire, not with respect, but "I'm just a girl from the streets, and I'm just a man with a car you once fixed." They both laughed, awkward and full of joy. 2 years later, their story made headlines, not because he was a billionaire, but because their wedding was held in the very neighborhood where they first met. Amina wore a modest but elegant dress, and kids from the streets were invited as guests of honor. They donated food, built a small workshop to train street girls in mechanics, and started a foundation together. Today, Amina is not just a wife or mechanic, she is a symbol of hope. She gives talks at schools, empowers young girls to learn trades, and never forgets to thank the street where she came from. And David, he says meeting Amina was the best investment he ever made, one that brought him wealth no money could buy.